My mother locked me in a soundproof closet and poisoned me into silence, then blamed what she did on mental health. I exposed her, got her convicted, and moved on. She just reached out after 5 years. Growing up, my mom had misophonia. For those who don't know, it's a condition where you genuinely cannot stand any loud sounds. In my mom's case, they made her see red. My first memory is when I was 6 years old and my mom stuffed a dirty dish towel in my mouth because, in her defense, I was crying my eyes out after a simple fall. If I ever snored too loudly, she would play a very loud horn in my room until I woke up. This was meant to negatively reinforce my bad behavior, so I would have an easier time not doing it. So, I ought to thank her. On my 9th birthday, she gave me a homemade report card with rows that were completely empty. She called it the quiet points system. Suddenly, everything clicked because for the weeks leading up to this moment, she had labeled all the food in the kitchen with sticky notes bearing numbers. Bread was 2 points, while meat was at least 10 points or higher. You earn points through being quiet, and the activities that earned the highest points were the hardest to do. For example, being quiet while I showered was only 3 points. But not snoring earned 8. She could never take points away for no reason, but I would have to spend them on food, meaning I always had to earn them. At the time, I was just a 9-year-old with big brown eyes and a heart that loved her mommy. So, I shrugged and wrapped my arms around her, not saying a word so as not to trigger her misophonia. Plus, I was used to being quiet anyway, so I didn't think this would change anything. The next morning, I followed my usual routine, slowly drawing back the curtains and waiting until I reached the school bathrooms to change out of my pajamas, all while wearing an overly grimaced face. It was all in the name of keeping the house quiet. Apparently, this pleased my mom because when I got home from school, she handed me the report card. In big, bold letters it said, 30 points, followed by multiple smiley faces and hearts. Before I could say anything, she opened the fridge and showed me my dinner selections. I could afford everything except my favorite ice cream. So, I chose steak, my treat, she said, before overcooking it so badly I couldn't swallow it without chewing super hard. As a misophonic person, mouth sounds are deadly to my mother. I tried to chew slowly, producing as much saliva as possible. After 5 minutes of painfully slow chewing on a single piece, I discreetly spit it out into a tissue, deciding I would eat nothing that day. My mom wasn't happy. "What the F are you doing?" she yelled. "A cow died for you today. The least you can do is eat it all. Put it back in your mouth now." My fingers unraveled the tissue and shoved it back into my mouth. On the way in, my tongue smacked the roof of my mouth. I went perfectly still, hoping she wouldn't notice, but I was too late. The room went silent as she banged her fists on the tablecloth. "You disgraceful bitch," she screamed. She grabbed the report card and burned it on the stove. "You think I can't make you suffer the same way you make me suffer? Think again." My fears spiked when she grabbed my hands and shoved them toward the stove. "The burning pain you feel is only 20% of how I feel when you make noise. Remember that." Luckily, she never put my hand in the fire and I didn't cry. Not because I didn't feel upset, but because I didn't want her to punish me for making noise while crying. I tiptoed to bed, and for 3 days, I had nothing but oxygen for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The point system had sent me into the negative zone, and I couldn't buy meals. My mom kept me thin enough not to raise suspicion, but after 3 days, I fainted at school. It lasted 20 seconds, but when I woke, the guidance counselor, Mrs. Henderson, was there with a chocolate bar, a banana, and a kind bar. I ate so fast I gagged. She didn't ask. She just said, "I'm calling CPS," and dialed while her hands shook. I sat perfectly still. My body learned that stillness meant safety, that movement created sound, and sound created pain. Even with my stomach full, I counted each silent breath until she returned. "Sweetie, they're on their way," she said. "Can you tell me more about home?" I whispered that my mom had misophonia and used the point system to control my meals, stuffing me in a closet, using horns to wake me, even threatening me with a hot stove. I described every detail. Mrs. Henderson's face grew paler as she wrote, "Soon, Principal Morrison and two CPS workers arrived. They took me to a nurse who documented my weight 72 pounds and my low blood pressure. They told me I was safe, but I didn't feel that way. At home later, my mom acted contrite. She claimed a therapist recommended noise-canceling headphones and a white noise machine. I wore them constantly except for brief meals under threat of medical non-compliance. The headphones masked all sound with ocean-like static. CPS returned the next day, saw a well-stocked kitchen and no evidence of abuse, and sent me back. Legal technicalities kept me from removal. Over months, my mother built a fortress of lies, falsified recordings, doctored documents, fake therapists, and bribes to Dr. Klaus, the pediatric specialist. She volunteered at school, kept other adults at bay, and medicated me heavily, papering over her abuse as oppositional defiant disorder. I existed in a fog of pills and white noise, trapped in a padded closet for hours at a time. Miss CB, a substitute teacher, saw through it. She learned Morse code signals I tapped, gathered real evidence, and quietly warned a counselor. But when CPS and school staff investigated again, my mother's forged paperwork and recordings plus her polished volunteer reputation blinded them. She nearly succeeded in committing me to a residential treatment center. One day, a new nurse smuggled me a note. "We know where you are, hold on." 3 days later, police raided Peaceful Meadows, the so-called facility. They rescued me alongside other children and arrested my mother, Dr. Klaus, and the staff. My mother received 25 years. Klaus got 30. The center closed. I moved in with my aunt, who taught me to make noise again, laugh, sing, tap a pencil, breathe freely. I joined choir and drama club. Mrs. Henderson and Miss CB visited. Miss Rodriguez checked in. At the trial, I testified loudly about the point system, the starvation, the closet. The judge cut my mother off. I've heard enough. Years later, I hum in hallways, share Morse code jokes with friends, and study to become a teacher, someone who will notice if a child suddenly goes to quiet. I was free.